Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Bruce McDonald, and this is the Talamanca Review, and it is Monday, the 14th of October at 7:28 p.m. And as always, I'm just delighted to spend this time with you folks. And there's nowhere I'd rather be. And I've grown real fond of doing this podcast, the Talamanca Review, and I look forward to it. Every day I start to think about it early on, and things come into my mind and stuff like that, and it's quite unique. It's a very unique podcast, and a very unique message, not for everybody, but fortunately for me, I have a day job, and I've never corrupted podcasting with making a living. Same thing with the books. If you want to read any one of the books, let me know. I'll send you a PDF if you can't afford them. And they're yours. That said, there's still this standing offer of The Galactic Historian for anybody who wants to read it, and I do recommend it. It is a consciousness expanding book, and it gives you an understanding of time that no other spiritual teachings on the planet have ever done. And for that reason alone, I think it's worth reading. And what the study of time does is it gives you a sense of futility. Like you become compliant to the idea that submission to the divine is the only way forward for a sensible human being. And I don't mean that in an Islamic way. Throw your women in a burqa, do the Ramadan fast and all that stuff. But I simply mean that you come to the genuine realization that the flowering of consciousness and the realization of a divine origin is the only realistic life goal. Everything else is just nonsense. Absolute nonsense. And really, when you understand what's going on, it's just not worth your time. It's not worth anybody's time, all the stupid stuff we do, jumping through hoops and stuff like that. Not worth anybody's time. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what it is that I want to talk about tonight on Monday Madness. Covered a lot of good ground in the last week or so in the freeform podcasts, which are fastly becoming, my favorite. And used to be I called them a walkabout. Now I just do every other podcast as a kind of a walkabout, but not necessarily named a walkabout. I think what I want to talk about tonight is the idea of holy places. And a holy place, or what people call a holy place, is at the center of much tension in the world right now. And that's Jerusalem, which of course is the city that Christ was crucified in. And the city of the ancient Hebrews. One of the more mythologized cities in the West. And then within that city, there's a bunch of other holy sites. Christians go and they do the tour. They walk the same route that Christ allegedly walked with his cross. And then, of course, at that very same site, you've got, or very close to that site, you've got the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which the Muslims claim is like the third holiest site in Islam. I think I have that right. It's like I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. I'm not an Islamic scholar. But their holy site is, of course, Mecca, right? Um, and then you've got a kind of a holy site that the bump in the night people like. And that's generally the haunted houses, the places where bad things happened. You can do gangster tourism in Medellin, Colombia now, and they'll have tour guides take you around and show you where big shootouts happened with Pablo Escobar's sicarios and the search block operated under Colonel Carrillo, and then after that his successor after Pablo killed Colonel Carrillo. It's very interesting, that somebody would want to pay money and go and do that. Haunted houses are popular with some people. Stardust Ranch became something of a place that people would go to. John Envins told me that he would find people outside the front of his house all the time, and he'd go out and it's just 3 or 4 teenagers. Like, is this Stardust Ranch? Yeah. So people, I don't know, for whatever reasons, people are drawn to these things, right? And then in the New Age movement, you've got all these whack jobs. I don't mean to be, I got to be me, right? Who else am I going to be, right? I think they're whack jobs. So I'm going to call them whack jobs. All these whack jobs who take these New Age pilgrims on tours to the pyramids, the Stonehenge, stuff like this. And then for the UFO and the hidden reality people, you could say that Antarctica is a holy site. But I'm going to tell you something. There's no such thing as a holy site. This is the first chapter, of course, in the last part of The Devil in Us. The chapter, I believe, is titled Holy Sites. And I fairly forcefully make the case that they don't exist. The only holy site on the planet for you is your body. Your body is the temple. It is the temple that you've incarnated into. To, as Jordan Peterson says, sort yourself out. But he means psychologically. But the body is the temple that we're given. And then if we're going to create a temple in life, it's where we invest ourselves. It's where we put our love and we put our being. The places we consecrate are our holy sites. Right? For many people, it's a childhood home. The place they grew up in, the house they grew up in. A lot of times people will go back and visit those places when they're older. I've never really been possessed of this type of sentiment. Never had it. Never been of any interest to me at all. The very most that one of these places is going to do for you is it's going to give you a psychic charge. That's what you're going to get at Stonehenge. That's what you're going to get at the pyramids. That's what you're going to get at the Vatican. That's what you're going to get at the Jerusalem. That's what you're going to get at, what's it called? Golgotha, the place, the hilltop on which Christ was allegedly crucified. It's all just a bunch of bunk, folks. It's all just complete nonsense and completely and utterly counterproductive to spiritual unfoldment. Well, I shouldn't say counterproductive, because that means that it's actually working against spiritual unfoldment. It's neutral. It doesn't do anything for you. And yet I don't know why, but for reasons I can't quite understand, people are just fascinated with this stuff. They can't get enough of it. Right? In 2000 and 2001, I worked in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I worked at a large company some of you may be familiar with. It used to be called Amway, and they changed their name to Quickstar. And Quickstar represented the transition from a multi-level marketing and phone company to an internet company. And they were very interesting people. The people that owned and ran Amway and Quickstar. And there was a very intelligent idea behind that company, and that was simply that by forgoing marketing and advertising costs and just using people and word of mouth in a human distribution chain, you could create a business opportunity for people and you could sell your products. It was really kind of an amazing idea. I've never bought Amway stuff, but I didn't quite realize what a genius company idea that was till I worked there. And it was owned by these two brothers who were billionaires. I mean, they ran the whole town, right? It was the ultimate town-run, company-run town. Let me tell you what the population of that was. It was Ann Arbor, Michigan. I can't quite remember what the population was. Ann Arbor, Michigan. So it's a college town, and the county seat of Washtenaw County, Michigan, United States. 2020 census recorded its population to be 123,851, making it the 5th most populous city in Michigan. And they've got the University of Michigan, beautiful campus. And it's a fairly small downtown, right? It's like a small Texas city. It was very quaint. I lived there just under a year. I used to drive home on the weekends. And why I bring this up is the two brothers who owned it. First of all, the place was so big that they would have little golf carts, like 8-person golf carts, battery-operated golf carts that could seat 8 people, 6 or 8 people, like 3 rows. And they would have drivers in the morning and the afternoon. And it's because the company was so big that you could end up parked so far away in the parking lot, it could take you 20-25 minutes to walk to the front door. And so they had these golf carts to go and pick you up. It was mind-boggling. When I worked there in 2000, 2001, there were like 14,000 employees. Like, it was a small city. And with all of this money and all of this business success, The hobby and the pastime of these two brothers was to go in their private jet. And when they were coming into work, when they were actually visiting the headquarters in Ann Arbor, they came in on a helicopter. I'm telling you, it's right out of a TV sitcom. You can't make this shit up. I dare you to even try. And you'd hear the helicopter outside, boo, 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 and oh, the brothers are here. And they were Dutch reformers, which is a Protestant sect. And I think probably the natural antecedent to Catholicism's Opus Dei. Because these Dutch reformers are like, there's just not enough rules in normal Christianity for them. They have to make up other ones just to seem stricter. And it certainly had worked for these two brothers, though, the Dutch Reformed Church. But in their spare time, they used to go all over the world in their private jet visiting, and I quote, holy sites. And your manager would tell you this, right? Like in a hushed voice at a company lunch. And they're very generous people. They used to bring us lunch 2-3 times a week. And I mean, you'd go into the boardroom and it was a buffet. It's literally like they brought like the best buffet from Florida and just put it in the boardroom. I think I gained like 15 pounds working that contract. They'd have 4 or 5 different kinds of cakes for dessert when you were done your lunch. And I mean, they'd have everything. It's like they'd have an entire menu on the boardroom table. If you wanted a club sandwich, there were club sandwiches cut up there. If you wanted fried chicken, there was fried chicken there. If you wanted veal, there was veal there. If you wanted a veal sandwich, you could take the veal. They had a big bowl of buns. You cut a bun open, a fresh bun, put your veal in. There's a bowl of, tomato sauce, and then you put a little mozzarella cheese on it, close your sandwich, and you go eat it. Potato salad. Like, I'm just salivating thinking about the food there back then, back in the day. It's really amazing. But that's what they did in their spare time. They went around to holy sites. And I didn't really know that holy sites were bunk back then. Took me a while to figure that out. I started thinking about this, because of what I said yesterday, and what I've realized recently is that I've consecrated my property. My land speaks to me. So, the old mythologies about this stuff, right? Oh, hold on a sec. There you go, I'm back, folks. Sorry about that. I lost the stream connection when I cut off my VPN. There shouldn't be any more drop frames. So, I mean, it's riddled all through our mythology, right? If for those of you who've gotten into the Camelot mythology, the bloodline, the royal line of England in King Arthur and Merlin and all of these things, right? They used to say the king and the land are one, right? And this goes back to ancient rituals, like the Wicker Man in the Druidic culture. So if a king lost a harvest, he'd get maybe one chance, and if the harvest failed 2 years in a row, the king would be burned alive in a giant wicker man with other animals. And it was a burnt offering to the nature spirits, right? And you knew that could happen to you if you became king, right? So there was no fooling around. There wasn't a big lineup of people looking to assume power back in the day. And that's why they neutered power. And that's why we throw people out. We have elections every 4 years. It's a mock killing of the king. Because all of this stuff is in our unconscious. Okay? But when you live by yourself the way I do in a remote place, and you live on a piece of land, and you live well on that land, because you're the dominant consciousness there, the human consciousness. There's astral stuff, but it's not physical, right? You're the dominant physical consciousness. The land will begin to resonate with you, and the land will begin to talk to you. It'll tell you when something's wrong. As I described in my last podcast, I'm not going to go over it again. And it's an amazing thing to realize, and I never would have realized this had I not moved here, had I not started living in the rainforest, had I not developed such an intimate relationship with nature. I don't want, don't get me wrong. I've got 4 computers. I make my living in high tech. I don't go walking every day. In fact, not much these days. I'm usually at home the whole day. It's not like I'm walking the land, but I'm living on the land. And I've built with the land through the Earth Bag House. And my land is my land. I am the natural authority on this land, both my wife and myself. And when you have that natural authority, your land works with you. The nature around you works with you. I wasn't even born a native, and I have figured this out living on this mountain since 2017. About 8 years, 7.5 going on 8 years. So what I'm telling you tonight is all the stuff you hear about land and consciousness and natural law and rights, it's all true. It's actually spiritually enforced. You just have to have the eyes to see it. And then once you have the eyes to see it, you just go, holy cow, it's all true. It's quite amazing to be realizing all these things in the later part of my life. That all of these ancient mythologies, now the average urban dweller who has no relationship with land, how are you going to have a relationship with the land you live on if you're on the 16th floor of a condo building? How's that possible? Or how are you going to have a relationship with your land if you live on a cul-de-sac and you've got a small lot and there's only like 12 feet between your house and the next house? Like you couldn't even pass a car between the 2 houses, the way modern subdivisions are built today. How are you ever going to have that relationship of consciousness and land? You're not. And these are the kinds of morons who go to holy sites because they haven't figured out that they're the holy site. They haven't consecrated their land, and you can't consecrate your land anymore. They've taken the land away from you. It's not really yours, you're just renting it. Land gives us spiritual power. Okay? Land gives us spiritual power. I did not know this before moving up here. I'm sharing with you something I have learned up here. And it is a very important lesson. Because if I'm right about what's coming, a lot of you will be returning to the land. Those of you who survive. And you'll be learning all of these things for yourselves. All of these things that the natives understood. Okay? I have a friend, very aware person, very charged person, very high state of consciousness. And some of you who listen to me might know who I'm referring to here. She lives in Australia. She bills herself as a quantum healer, but she's the real deal. Okay? And she went to India. And I was talking to her about it. And she's friends with the Dalai Lama. She's on a first name basis with the Dalai Lama. She calls him Tenzin. She doesn't call him His Holiness. She calls him Tenzin. And she said to me that the thing I found most unique about India was all the real spirituality. It's not in the ashrams. It's in the villages. And so you'll have villages in India with now even a village is big in India. When I say village, I mean everything is built by hand the way this house was built from earth. But I had to use tools, right? Circular saws and stuff like that. But they're living in mud and straw wall houses and using cow dung as fire fuel to cook, and growing most of their food, and weaving their clothes. Yeah, there's places in the world that still live this way. And my friend, her name is Melissa, she said all the spirituality was in the villages. And when I started to wake up to how I had consecrated my land, and I will contradict what I said 5 minutes ago, and I will repeat what taught me this. It's the way my land speaks to me. So if somebody comes up here and they've got a negative attachment, the land will send me a symbolic representative of the negative attachment in them or around them. Whether it be a snake, a cluster of flies, or a spider. It's always a physical thing. And it's very rare to see those things around here, because I have 8 cats. You know how hard it is for a snake to get onto my balcony? My cats kill snakes. Cat can kill a snake quite easily. It's really quite something to see. The death dance between a snake and a cat. Like two master, that was Bob calling. 2 master predators going at it. And just tell them I'm on air. And then so when I started to come to this consciousness that, holy cow, like there's this special relationship mankind has with land. Okay? Now I kind of get why the Jews want to go back to Israel. Now that I know what I know about land, right? They have a lot of ancestral energy there. The temple is underneath the Alaska Mosque. Right? I get it. And undoubtedly the rabbis understand the power relationship, the spiritual relationship and the spiritual power you get being based on land. And like I said, you can't get this in a subdivision. And I think unconsciously this is why people fight over property lines and stuff like that. Because they're all upset about the lost consciousness between man and land. So remember, we have all these theories out there, you know, all these people talking. And, you know, there's people out there and they have a speciality in communicating with animals. And this really can be done. Like, it's a direct communication with animals. There's people in horse breeding who specialize in this. And I mean, when I say they can speak to animals, I mean they get called out by a wealthy sheikh or something who has the kind of money to fly them out and who has the kind of money to spend like that on their horses. And the horses are probably very expensive to begin with. And the person who can communicate with the horse goes and talks to the animal and then goes to the owner and said, "Did you change their food 3 months ago from this to this?" And the owner will go, "How did you know that?" And they'll go, "Well, your horse told me." And then they'll give them the list of the things that have put the horse into the depression. And then there's people who can speak to dogs. And then there's other people emerging now who can speak to all kinds of different kinds of animals. There's a guy on this mountain. He's quite a character. He's kind of like an intermittent alcoholic. When he's got money, he'll go on a 5, 6, 7-day bender. He's a complete sex freak, like Illuminati level. I mean, men, women, but he's a very jovial guy. He's got like no evil about him. Although, in moments of acute sobriety, he will come and visit me and say, "Bruce, can you help me?" I say, "Well, what's the matter?" I won't say his name. He'll say, "The devil's bothering me a lot." And I'll say, "Buddy, you left the door open, man. Of course he's in your consciousness." Right? Well, what do? I said, well, I give him a list of things to do. And then he goes and he gets a little bit of money, finds a little work to do. Because a lot of people I work with, they just work intermittently, right? And because they don't have to. They have all their food, they have all their water, they have their shelter, they don't pay any taxes, they don't have to work. And when they do a solid month's work, and when they work hard, like they're not lazy. But they'll work for a month and they'll get $500, $600 US. And then they'll go on like a 1-month bender, drinking this rot gut sugarcane alcohol they make over here, which is the cheapest shit you can buy. You can buy a half-liter bottle of this stuff, and it's 40 proof, right? The same as any whiskey or anything. And it's clear white, like vodka, and it's like $4 a bottle. It's cheaper than a beer in a bar. And at the alcohol level, it's the equivalent of 8 beers. And they'll just buy this stuff. And they'll go on a 7-8 day bender, like just sleeping for 3 hours, waking up, keeping the drunk going. "Bruce, can you help me? The devil's bothering me. Stop drinking." You tell them, it just goes in one ear and out the other. But this guy can call birds to his hands. And he doesn't have any seeds or anything. He just does this whistle like, and he can call, the bird will land right in his hand. I've never seen anything like it in my life. Right? And now my relationship is beginning to develop because it's natural to all human beings. The reason you guys don't have it is the system we live in. First of all, you're not really on the land. Now this is a deeper dimension to the whole sovereigntist, free man on the land movement. There's a spiritual dimension to it. There's a reason they don't in the Commonwealth system, in the European system. There's a reason they don't want people connected to the land. Because we draw power from the land. The land will protect us. Okay? This is why I say stuff like, I don't think anybody could beat the Kebakar in the Talamanca Mountains at a war games exercise with paintball machine guns. I don't think the best special forces teams in the world could beat them on their home turf. They're like the Taliban back there. It's like mind-boggling. I've told you at times I give you little bits of lore from my community here. There was a trafficker who was threatening one of my friends on the reserve, and because they know there's gold on the burial sites, And I'm saying to my friend, aren't you afraid? He goes, not really. I said, why not? He says, well, he has to kill me here, meaning his land in the mountains, right? And he says, I'll know they're coming when they're a mile and a half out. And I said, well, how would you know? Like, a dog's not going to start barking when things are that far out. He goes, I just know. And he's telling the truth. He just knows. The land tells him, right? My wife's banging away out there again. I get no respect up here. I'm telling you, man. No respect at all. It's like a Rodney Dangerfield skit. So, you are connected to your land. And I'm starting to realize this. And this is part of the returning consciousness. Okay? This has been gone for generations, this consciousness. The royal lines and the nobility took it out of the peasants even in Europe. I think the Japanese had it. And the reason I say the Japanese had it is the Shinto religion. Shinto, remember when I talked about Taoism being unique to China? Shinto is unique to Japan. They both imported Buddhism from India, but Shinto is native to Japan as Taoism is native to China. And Shintoism is a kind of shamanistic spiritual system that deals with nature and mountains and rivers, and they attribute a spirit to everything. And they communicated with dragons, and dragons are a big part of the elemental spiritual realm. And these are all valid spiritual realms, and they're positive, they're functional, they're part of the operating system that keeps our reality going even on the material level. You're not a sinner if you're curious about these things and you're a Christian. Christ knew about these things. I guarantee you he knew about these things. Okay? And that's another thing why so much of our natural spiritual consciousness is cut off, is the Christians came in, and specifically the Catholics, but the Protestants didn't really change anything. And they took all the rungs of the ladder out. And everybody's just like a 5-year-old kid jumping up to try and get a rung they can't reach on a ladder. And the bishops and the priests are going, that's God. If you can't grab that rung, it's because you're a sinner. But there's all these rungs you got to go up to get to God. You got to go through the natural realm and the astral. You got to go through time. And they took it all out. Right? They just took it all out. They took the ladder steps out. That's what they did. And to be clear, the Jews aren't going to put them back if they get temporary control over the world under Noahide law. They're not going to put those ladder steps back because they don't want Goy knowing the secrets of reality. That's only for Jews. Right? But it doesn't matter because they're both going away. They're both going away. The Christian, the only thing that will last a little bit longer is Islam. So, and Islam did the same thing to them. It came in and took out a lot of the nature spirits and a lot of the connection they had with nature. Right? And these relationships are extremely important. Extremely important. So, these are some of the things that I'm learning up here, and they're all real. This is what I'm telling you tonight. They're real. I've seen this operative principle of land and man connected to land working in my own life. It's working in my life now. I have restored this old contract between human beings and land. My land speaks to me. It tells me what's going on. And that's an amazing thing to experience. It's almost like a miracle. Absolutely amazing thing to experience. What else do I want to talk about tonight? Well, we're getting pretty close, about 20 days from the election. 21, 22 days. Now, if I'm reading social media right, man, it seems to be a lock for Trump. Okay? Yeah, I mean a lock. You know, you want to amuse yourself, go on to X and look at, search for Barack Obama, and look at what black people, especially black men, are saying about him calling them out for not wanting to vote for Kamala Harris. And what they're saying is brilliant. It's just absolutely brilliant. And one black guy goes, would anybody find it strange if Trump got up and said, I'm white, if you're a white man and you don't vote for me, there's something wrong with you? And then everybody obviously goes, yeah, that would strike us all as very strange and maybe riotous, like inciting a riot. And then his question is, well, why is it okay for a black man to do it? And this is a black guy asking the question. Why is it okay for Barack Obama to do this? To go out and race hustle like this? And they're calling him on his shit. They see him for what he is now. And his entire 8-year presidency is going through a review now, and the black American community is starting to look at Obama the way white liberal Americans started looking at Clinton and going, wait a minute, this guy isn't a champion of progressiveness and justice and equity. He's basically a thief, an extortionist, and a rapist, and a thug. You know? And it's a wonderful thing, you know, to see people awakening to this now, you know. I do have one thing I'd like to show you. I think I downloaded it. Let me see if I did. Pretty sure I did. Bob sent it to me. And, hold on a sec. What do I want to use here to watch a video? I think I want to use QuickTime. I like QuickTime on the Mac. I'm a total Mac guy now, eh? I've been Linux for 25 years. This is very shameful for me. But I just like it since they went to the M-class chips, and they're super fast, super responsive. It's a great computer. Yeah, you're not gonna believe this, man. Like, this is like really something. Do I? Oh, I'm gonna have to bring it in here. Sorry, folks. Yeah. I'm gonna have to bring it in here, but it's all coming out now. It's the great age of disclosure, is what I call it now. That's what we're living in.
Well, there are pictures.
The great age of disclosure. Hold on a sec there.
Well, there are pictures.
Yeah, you got to see this, man. Whoops. I should be better prepared. I do apologize for this. But look, man, I never claimed to be a professional podcaster, right? I'm just some guy on the internet speculating about a hypothesis is all. All right, let's watch this, okay? Because this is going to blow your mind.
Well, there are pictures of Bush with his arm around 8-year-old Barack Obama because his stepdaddy, adopted daddy, Lolo Sotoro, had done a lifetime worth of business with the Bushes. Wow. Uncle George Herbert Walker, after whom George Herbert Walker Bush, Bush 1 president, was named, founded Halliburton in 1946 in Oklahoma. And Lolo Sotoro had been international executive vice president for Standard Oil.
There was talk of him being a CIA asset.
Well, yeah, see, he ran the death squads for the Indonesian army. On his own call, anyone could be assassinated. So when George Herbert Walker Bush became head of the CIA under the Ford administration, He just got with his old buddy in the oil business, Lolo Sotoro, and pulled off the hits. See, Barack's grandmother has been acknowledged as being the woman that operated the channels through which CIA money went to the Southwest Pacific. So she introduced her daughter, who had just had Barry, Barack, to Lolo Sotoro, and they got married, and Lolo Sotoro adopted Barack Obama. The name was changed to Barry Sotoro. Now, when he went to high school in Hawaii, I know about that high school. I almost sent my oldest son to it. I could afford it, but I didn't think he deserved it. 20 years ago, the tuition was $95,000 a year, not including room and board. When Obama went there, I've talked to two of his classmates. They independently stated the tuition, not including room and board, was $45,000. Now, Business Insider reports his income for 2017 at over $200 million net. That's after taxes, deductions, write-offs. For this last year, 2018, they reported it as $570 plus million. And that's after all deductions, tax, right? Trump doesn't make that net. I mean, even some of the richest people in America don't make that. Why? Because when his stepdaddy died, he was one of the 10, 15 richest men on earth. And he left everything in a trust fund operated out of Indonesia, so the American government can't touch it. It makes Barack Obama 1/3 beneficiary for the assets of one of the 10, 15 richest men on earth. See, so we got a game run on us. So, you know that little thing that Bush W does when he gets with Michelle, they giggle and he gives her candy. The inside thing is that's supposed to be the same kind of candy he used to give to her husband when he was 6, 7, 8 years old.
You can't make this stuff up. I dare to even try. Okay? But the beauty is that it's all coming undone now. We're starting to see the truth. We're starting to get the truth. And we've needed it for a long time. And we're a beautiful species, a beautiful race of sentient beings, the human race. And we deserve a chance. And we haven't had a chance for a long time now. And I don't know, you talk to some people, they seem to have this all figured out, you know, like, well, we were going through the Kali Yuga and blah, 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 blah. I don't know. Maybe it's true. Maybe it isn't true. I don't look into things in that way. If they come to me, I'll look into them, but I've never been drawn in that direction. So, but I can tell you this, something is changing. And if it wasn't changing, we wouldn't be hearing the things we're hearing now. Now, you know my theory, right? That, you know, giving up all these evil people is being done by more evil people who kind of want to take over the world, right? And I don't need to keep repeating myself. I'm pretty sure you know who I'm talking about. And, you know, that's what's going on, and that's why these people are being thrown under the bus, because it's time for the real leaders, the rabbis, to come out from the shadows now and govern the world. And all these people that have been doing this evil and killing to make money and everything, they're all going to be hung out to dry now. They'll be giving up the Clintons pretty soon too, right? Somebody's going to, well, they've been given up, but I have this intuitive hunch that something's going to happen with them that's going to be very, very demonstrative. Like even diehard supporters are going to go, oh, come on, Bill and Hillary, are you kidding me? How can I support this? Anyways, I guess I'll call that a podcast. You know, I'm Bruce McDonald, and this has been the Talamanca Review. Be well, folks.